One of the issues we've had with this motorhome since we bought it is this Mickey Mouse light up here. This is the courtesy light that comes on when you open the door, and also just on and off here. And it's actually not very bright, and it's not even installed right. I mean, they installed it crookedly. So what I did is I bought a light that should be nicer that I'm going to try to install right here. In place of that light. There's just enough room between the two sun visors to put this. And then where I vacate the room for that light, I'm going to put my tire pressure monitoring system, mount that there, and that's going to be okay because it's going to still be much higher than the rearview mirror, so it's not going to be in the way of viewing the rearview mirror. So I got a piece of corian that I'm going to try to shape into like a little console thing here. It's canvas is the color, I believe. So what I got to do is measure for the corian. Looks like there's maybe a little slope here. I may have to do a little bit of heat treating of the corian to bend it slightly, but it looks like there's place to mount it here, and of course there would be here as well. So we'll see how this project progresses. This is the concept that I came up with for the overhead console. I'm making it out of 1/2 inch thick corian with the color being chamois. It's a pretty close color to what's going to be in the overhead upholstery. So this is the design concept that I'm going to work off with, and I can machine this with standard woodworking tools. Well, I'm going to make the overhead console out of this. This is a 1/2 inch corian. It's about a 12 by 9 inch piece, and you can buy these as scrap usually on eBay. Although this particular one here was one that I end up having to pay a bit of a premium for because the seller is making chopping boards out of them. But you know, this has the color that I want. Now it's interesting that on the polished surface there's some little flakes in here that, you know, kind of help make it decorative, but in the case of this console, that's not what I want. On the back surface, which is not as polished, which actually can be made polished, there are no such little accents. So I'm going to use this side, and this actually is pretty close to being the same color as the cab is, as the upholstery and stuff. And this is actually the second piece that I bought. The first piece I ruined by rushing it and not measuring it right. So, you know, this is 15 bucks a piece for this corian, which is, like I said, a little bit more expensive than what normally I find for scrap. But that is what it is, so we're going to go on from here. I did create a template this time of the overhead console, and here basically is where the two visors come into play. And so those visors, basically I laid those out here, and then let me back up a second. If you remember my initial video, I'm replacing the overhead light, which is kind of Mickey Mouse. Well, the overhead light goes right in here, and I'm replacing it with a nicer light that's going to go about so. It's kind of an aircraft style light, and then that gives me room to mount this TPMS gauge. So I'm going to try to mount that about right there. I'm going to have to probably go back into the van and, you know, kind of make a judgment call as to where it's going to go. Well, the most difficult part of the project was the fabrication of this piece of corian that I'm going to make the console base. Unfortunately, the lighting wasn't very good in my workshop, at least not good enough to do video without being too dark. So even now, I mean, this looks like the camera is overexposing this a little bit. Anyway, it's going to go right up here, and this is going to fit. If I can do this with one hand here, basically like that. And I don't know. Again, this camera is not cooperating very well. There we go. So it's going to basically look like that. These two screw holes here will go into the base at the top, and then there's two front ones that'll go in. And then where the wiring is there, you can see I've milled in a trace that goes down here, and I kind of used a poor man's milling machine to do that, which basically consists of a drill press with a milling bit and a slide table, XY table. And it works good enough for stuff like this. It's not as accurate with metal, but this it works okay. And then this is going to be an exit hole for the TPMS power. And this is a little riser for the TPMS because otherwise the TPMS would not quite fit right. So also put in blind T-nuts here for the light. And then I'm going to take you back inside here and see if I can kind of demonstrate how all the stuff's going to go together. Well, now we've got the pre-assembly done on the console part. If you look over on the bottom side here, I've got the wiring done, and then I hot melted all the wiring so it stays in place. Basically, I've got I'm going to have positive, negative from here coming through here, and then they're paralleled through this fuse back up to this wire, which is going to be the wire for the power wire for TPMS, and the fuse will be in this little spot here, and then these two wires here are what's going to connect to the dual light, aircraft style light that's going to go on here. Now, next step is to wire into the existing connection, and I probably should remove the fuse before I do it, but I don't know exactly where it's at, and I think I can do this without doing any kind of blow fuse. But if I blow a fuse, then I'll know which one it is. Now they have two white wires here, which is seems kind of unusual, although one has a black tracer, and the black tracer looks like it's connected to the black wire, so I'm going to assume that's ground, but I'm not going to assume anything. I'm going to measure it. And now just to measure it again, just to be sure that we've got continuity to the end here. And we still got 12 volts, so we're good. Alright. So by looking at it sideways here, that's what it's going to look like.